I need to tell you about a dream where Jesus revealed to me who we first meet when we cross over from this life to eternity. I know this sounds impossible, and honestly, I've been wrestling with whether to share something this personal. But what he showed me about that first encounter after we leave this world has completely transformed how I understand love, relationships, and what's waiting for us on the other side. This revelation isn't just for me, it's for anyone who has ever wondered about eternity or grieved someone they love. To understand what happened, we have to go back to a conversation I had with my grandmother before she passed away 10 years ago. This is going to be a detailed story, so I ask that you bear with me as I walk you through this journey. My grandmother, Maria, raised me after my parents went through their difficult separation when I was 7. She was this tiny Italian woman with hands that always smelled like garlic and prayers that seemed to reach straight into heaven. She had this unshakable faith that I honestly envied. When I was growing up, I used to ask her all these deep questions about life and eternity. I was that kid who stayed awake at night wondering about the mysteries of existence. One question that haunted me from childhood was what happens in those first moments after we cross over. Do we just float into some bright light? Do we immediately see God on a throne? Are we confused, scared, peaceful? My grandmother would always smile when I asked these questions, but I could see something deeper in her eyes, like she knew something she wasn't telling me. The night before she went into the hospital for the last time, we sat on her porch drinking tea. I was in my early 20s then, full of questions about my future, about faith, about whether any of this spiritual stuff was real. She looked at me with these knowing eyes and said something that stuck with me all these years. "Jonathan, when my time comes, I'm not worried about meeting God. I already know him. I'm excited about meeting everyone else." I didn't understand what she meant then, and I was too young to ask the right follow-up questions. She passed peacefully 3 days later, and I've carried that conversation with me ever since. It shaped so many of my questions about eternity, about what really happens when we transition from this life to whatever comes next. As I got older and my faith deepened, especially through my work portraying Jesus, these questions became even more pressing. I found myself praying about it, reading scripture about it, but never feeling like I had a clear answer. Until 3 nights ago, when everything changed in the most unexpected way. I need to tell you that my relationship with prayer has evolved so much over the years. When I first started acting, prayer felt formal, almost scripted. But playing Jesus has taught me that prayer is supposed to be like talking to your closest friend. It's raw, honest, sometimes messy. 3 nights ago, I was having one of those brutally honest conversations with God. I was exhausted, spiritually drained, and carrying questions that felt too heavy for my heart. I poured out everything, my doubts, my fears, my deepest curiosities about eternity. I specifically remember asking Jesus about my grandmother's words that night. I said, "Lord, what did she mean about being excited to meet everyone else? Who do we actually encounter first when we cross over? Is it really just a bright light, or is there something more personal, more relational waiting for us?" I wasn't expecting an immediate answer. Usually when I pray about deep mysteries like this, I expect to wait weeks or months for any kind of clarity. But something was different that night. The air in my room felt charged with anticipation. As I drifted off to sleep, I felt this unusual peace wash over me. It wasn't just tiredness, it was like being wrapped in the most comfortable blanket of love and safety I'd ever experienced. My last conscious thought was a simple prayer: "Jesus, help me understand what you want me to know about eternity." I fell asleep with that prayer on my lips, having no idea that I was about to receive the most profound answer I could have imagined. The dream that followed wasn't like any dream I'd ever had before. The first thing I remember is finding myself in this place that wasn't quite earthly but wasn't quite heavenly either. Imagine the most peaceful moment you've ever experienced, maybe watching a sunset that took your breath away, or holding someone you love in perfect silence, and multiply that feeling by 1,000. There was this soft, warm light everywhere, but it wasn't coming from any source I could identify. It was like the light itself was alive, pulsing gently with love and welcome. I felt completely safe, completely known, completely accepted. And then I saw him. Jesus appeared before me, and I immediately knew this wasn't just my imagination or wishful thinking. This was real in a way that transcended normal dreaming. He looked at me with such tenderness, such complete understanding, that I felt tears streaming down my face. But they weren't tears of sadness, they were tears of recognition, like my soul was saying, "Yes, this is home." He smiled at me, and in that smile I saw every prayer he'd ever heard from me, every doubt he'd walked through with me, every moment he'd been present when I felt alone. The first words he spoke to me were, "Jonathan, you've been carrying questions that are too heavy for your heart to hold alone." His voice was exactly what you'd expect, strong but gentle, authoritative but intimate. I remember nodding, because it was true. I had been carrying these questions about eternity, about suffering, about the meaning of life, like stones in my chest. He continued, "I know you've wondered about those first moments after someone leaves their earthly body. I know you've carried your grandmother's words all these years, trying to understand what she meant." He gestured for me to walk with him, and we began moving through this incredible landscape that kept shifting and changing. Sometimes it looked like the rolling hills of Galilee, sometimes like a garden more beautiful than anything I'd seen on earth, sometimes like places that don't exist in our physical world but felt more real than anything I'd ever experienced. As we walked, he began to answer the question that had been burning in my heart for over a decade. The first encounter after transitioning from Earth, he said, is not what most people expect. Now, we're in the 5th season of The Chosen, and I've been blessed to portray Jesus for several years now. We're even preparing to film season 6 soon. But I want you to know that nothing, absolutely nothing I've learned from studying scripture or researching for that role prepared me for the intimacy and clarity of this conversation. This wasn't the Jesus I portray on screen. This was the real Jesus, speaking to me as personally as he speaks to you, answering questions that scholars have debated for centuries with the simplicity and authority that only truth itself can provide. Before I continue, I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. Drop a comment below and let me know you're here with me on this journey. Back to what I was saying, he looked at me with this expression of deep compassion and said, "Most people think they'll first encounter me, or my Father, or perhaps an angel at the gates of heaven. But that's not how love works, Jonathan. Love is personal. Love is relational. Love knows exactly what each soul needs in their moment of greatest transition." I was hanging on every word, feeling like I was receiving information that would change how I understood everything about eternity, about relationships, about the very nature of God's heart for his children. He looked at me with this expression of deep compassion and said, "Most people think they'll first encounter me, or my Father, or perhaps an angel at the gates of heaven. But that's not how love works, Jonathan. Love is personal. Love is relational. Love knows exactly what each soul needs in their moment of greatest transition." I was hanging on every word, feeling like I was receiving information that would change how I understood everything about eternity, about relationships, about the very nature of God's heart for his children. He continued, "The first person someone encounters after leaving their earthly body is the person they need to see most in that moment. For some, it might be a parent who went before them. For others, it might be a child they lost too soon. For many, it's the person who first showed them unconditional love on earth." As he spoke these words, I felt this incredible wave of emotion. I thought about my grandmother, about all the people I've lost over the years, about everyone who has wondered about these same questions. But here's what's beautiful about this truth. Jesus continued, his eyes lighting up with joy. This first encounter isn't random. It's not based on who happened to be available or who arrived in heaven most recently. It's divinely orchestrated by the Father's perfect love and intimate knowledge of each person's heart. He paused, letting this sink in, and I could feel the weight of how personal and intentional God's love really is. This wasn't a bureaucratic system or a one-size-fits-all approach to eternity. I found myself thinking about all the people watching who have lost loved ones, who have wondered if they'll ever see them again, who have carried grief and questions about what happens after we leave this world. Jesus seemed to sense exactly what I was thinking because he said, "This is why I want you to share this message, Jonathan." There are so many people carrying unnecessary fear about that transition, wondering if they'll be alone or confused or scared. But love, perfect love, has already prepared the most beautiful welcome they could imagine. He explained it like this: when a child falls and gets hurt, they don't run to just any adult for comfort. They run to the person who makes them feel most safe, most loved, most understood. The transition from earth to eternity is similar. My Father, in his perfect wisdom and love, ensures that each person is greeted by the soul who can best help them understand that they are safe, they are home, they are infinitely loved. The more he explained, the more I understood why my grandmother had been so peaceful about her approaching transition. As we continued walking through this indescribable landscape, I could feel my heart expanding with hope and wonder. This wasn't just information, this was revelation that was healing parts of my soul I didn't even know were wounded. I thought about every funeral I'd attended, every person who had grieved the loss of someone precious. Every time I'd wondered if love really does transcend the boundaries between this world and the next. Jesus was showing me that love doesn't just transcend those boundaries. Love designs the very experience of crossing them. Then Jesus said something that made me understand why this encounter was happening now, in this season of my life. Jonathan, you've been preparing for this conversation through every role you've played, every prayer you've prayed, every question you've carried. This isn't random timing. He gestured toward the beautiful expanse around us. I'm showing you this now because there are people who need to hear this truth. They need to know that love is the governing principle of eternity, not fear, not judgment, not confusion. I asked him what happens in those first moments of that divine reunion. Do people recognize each other immediately? Are they confused about what's happening? Do they remember their earthly relationships? His face lit up with this beautiful smile as he began to describe what he's witnessed countless times. Recognition is instant and complete, he said. But it's not just recognizing who someone was on earth. It's recognizing who they truly are, their essence, their soul, freed from all the limitations and wounds of earthly life. He continued, imagine seeing someone you love, but instead of seeing them as you remember them, perhaps tired or sick or burdened by life's struggles, you see them as I've always seen them. You see their beauty, their light, their true self that was sometimes hidden by pain or fear or the weight of living in a broken world. As he spoke, I could almost see it happening, these moments of recognition that go so much deeper than physical appearance, straight to the core of who someone really is. But here's what's even more beautiful, Jesus added, his voice filled with wonder. In that moment of recognition, both souls understand something they might not have fully grasped on earth, how deeply they were loved, how much their relationship mattered, how every act of kindness they showed each other was actually a reflection of my love flowing through them. I felt tears welling up as I realized how many people go through life not fully understanding the eternal significance of their love for others. I asked him about people who had complicated relationships on earth, those who lost touch, who had unresolved conflicts, who never got the chance to say goodbye properly. His expression became incredibly tender. Earthly limitations don't exist in eternity, Jonathan. Misunderstandings that seemed so important on earth dissolve in the presence of perfect truth. Words that were never spoken are suddenly understood. Love that was hidden by pride or fear or circumstance shines clearly. He paused. Forgiveness isn't just possible, it's instantaneous when you see each other through eyes of eternal love. As we walked deeper into this realm of indescribable beauty, Jesus began to show me what these reunions actually look like. I witnessed soul after soul arriving from earth, and each one was greeted by exactly the person their heart needed to see most. I saw a young woman being embraced by an older woman who radiated maternal love. I saw a man being welcomed by someone who must have been his closest friend, both of them laughing with pure joy. I saw children running into the arms of grandparents, their faces glowing with recognition and delight. Notice, Jesus said softly, how natural this all feels to them. There's no confusion, no fear, no wondering where they are or what's happening. Love has prepared the way, and love is greeting them home. I watched in awe as each reunion unfolded with such perfect timing, such intimate personalization. It was clear that these weren't chance encounters or random assignments. Every detail had been lovingly orchestrated by someone who knew each person's heart completely. I asked Jesus about people who felt unloved on earth, who didn't have close relationships, who might have lived isolated lives. His face filled with such compassion as he answered, "No soul is without love, Jonathan, even if they didn't recognize it on earth. Sometimes the person who greets them is someone who loved them from a distance, a teacher who saw their potential, a neighbor who prayed for them, even someone they helped without realizing it. Love creates connections that transcend what we can see with earthly eyes." He showed me one particular reunion that took my breath away. A man who had lived what appeared to be a lonely life was being embraced by a woman whose face shone with maternal love. Jesus explained, "That's his elementary school teacher. She prayed for him every day for 30 years, never knowing what happened to him after he left her classroom. Her love reached across decades and circumstances to be here for his homecoming." I realized that love creates bonds we might never be aware of, connections that matter more than we could ever imagine. This is why relationships matter so much. Jesus continued, "Every act of love, every moment of genuine care, every prayer offered for someone else creates these eternal connections. People think earthly relationships are temporary, but true love transcends the boundaries between earth and eternity. What they build in love here continues in ways more beautiful than they can imagine." I thought about every relationship in my own life, every person who had shown me kindness, every prayer I'd prayed for others. As I watched these beautiful reunions continue to unfold around us, I understood something profound about the nature of God's love. He doesn't welcome us home with distance or formality. He welcomes us through the people we've loved and who have loved us. "My love is personal," Jesus said, as if reading my thoughts. "It's relational, it's intimate. I could greet every soul myself, but love recognizes that coming home is sweetest when you're welcomed by those who know your heart." Jesus then began to explain something that completely shifted my understanding of heaven and eternity. People often think of heaven as a place where they'll spend eternity worshiping at a throne, but heaven is so much more than that. It's a realm of perfect relationship, where love flows freely in every direction, where every soul is fully known and fully accepted, where the connections formed in love on earth bloom into something infinitely more beautiful. His words painted a picture of eternity that was warm, relational, and deeply personal. "The first reunion is just the beginning," he continued, his voice filled with excitement. "Once someone has been welcomed home by the person they needed to see most, they're introduced to the full community of love that has been waiting for them. Grandparents who passed before they were born, friends from every season of their life, even people who loved them in ways they never knew about on earth. I could see it unfolding, these expanding circles of love and connection, each soul being embraced by a community that had been prepared specifically for them. I asked him about the timing of these reunions. Does someone who lived a long life on earth meet people who have been in eternity for decades? How does time work in this realm? Jesus smiled at my very human questions about divine mysteries. Time, as you understand it, doesn't exist here, Jonathan. A soul who arrived in eternity 50 Earth years ago experiences it as if they just arrived. Love exists outside of time, so reunions happen in perfect timing that has nothing to do with earthly chronology. He continued, "Think of it like this. When you love someone deeply, time seems to stop when you're with them, and it seems endless when you're apart. In eternity, that stopping of time is permanent. Every reunion happens at exactly the right moment, and every moment together feels both like an instant and like forever." This explanation helped me understand why my grandmother hadn't been worried about waiting for our reunion in God's realm. Waiting doesn't feel like waiting when love is the dimension you're living in. As we continued our walk, Jesus began to show me how these initial reunions affect the entire community of heaven. When someone comes home, he explained, it's not just personal joy for those directly involved. Every soul in eternity celebrates because love has been completed. Another story has reached its beautiful conclusion. Another member of the family has arrived safely home. I watched as waves of joy rippled through this incredible realm every time a new soul was welcomed by their loved one. This is why earthly loss is so hard, Jesus said gently. Love was designed for togetherness, for connection, for relationship. When someone you love transitions from earth, part of your heart goes with them. But Here's what's beautiful, that part of your heart isn't lost. It's here, being cared for, being nurtured, being prepared for the moment when you'll be reunited and whole again. His words brought healing to parts of my heart that had ached with loss for years. I thought about all the people watching who are carrying grief, who miss someone so much it physically hurts, who wonder if their love for someone who has passed away still matters. Jesus seemed to sense exactly what I was thinking. Tell them that their love is not wasted, their grief is not meaningless, and their longing for reunion is actually a preview of what's coming. That ache in their heart is love stretching across dimensions, maintaining connection until the distance is closed forever. He then showed me something that brought me to tears, the preparation that happens for each person's homecoming. Long before someone's earthly life is complete, Jesus explained, preparations begin in eternity. The person who will greet them home starts getting ready, gathering others who love them, preparing the perfect welcome. I saw loved ones in eternity actively preparing for reunions that were still years or even decades away in earth time, their love motivating them to create the most beautiful homecoming possible. Love is active, Jesus continued. It doesn't just wait passively. Those who have gone before are partnering with me to prepare the way for those who are still on their earthly journey. They're praying for them, preparing for them, celebrating every step of their spiritual growth. This revelation transformed my understanding of what our loved ones in eternity are doing. They're not just resting, they're actively loving us forward and preparing our homecoming. As this portion of our encounter began to deepen, Jesus looked at me with such intensity that I felt like he was seeing straight through to my soul. Jonathan, this truth about first encounters in eternity reveals something crucial about how I want people to live on earth right now. If love is the governing principle of eternity, if relationships are what matter most, if connections formed in love transcend the boundary between worlds, then how should this change the way they treat each other today? What Jesus revealed next completely transformed how I understand the purpose of earthly relationships. He said, every act of love on earth is practice for eternity. Every moment of forgiveness is preparation for the perfect forgiveness they'll experience here. Every time they choose connection over isolation, vulnerability over self-protection, they're building bridges that will span from their earthly life into their eternal home. I realize that our relationships aren't just temporary experiences, they're training ground for the infinite love we're designed for. The person who greets someone home, Jesus continued, is often the person who taught them the most about love during their earthly journey. It might be the parent who showed them unconditional acceptance, the friend who saw their true worth when they couldn't see it themselves, or the spouse who demonstrated faithfulness through every season of life. He paused, letting this sink in. This means that every act of love they show, every moment they choose to see the best in someone, they might be preparing themselves to be someone's first glimpse of home. This revelation hit me like lightning. I thought about all the relationships in my life, all the opportunities I have every day to show love, kindness, patience, forgiveness. Jesus was showing me that these aren't just nice gestures, they're eternal investments. When someone chooses to love sacrificially, he said, when they forgive deeply, when they see the best in others consistently, they're becoming the kind of person who can represent my heart to others, both on earth and in eternity. Jesus then began to describe the criteria for who becomes someone's first encounter in eternity. It's not about perfection, he said firmly. It's not about being a perfect parent or a flawless friend. It's about being a consistent channel of my love, about representing my heart to others, even through your own brokenness and humanity. This brought me such relief because I immediately thought about my own imperfections, my failures in relationships, the times I've fallen short of being the friend or person I wanted to be. The beauty of love, Jesus continued, is that it works through imperfect people. Some of the most powerful first encounters in eternity happen when someone is greeted by a person who loved them well despite their own struggles, who chose to be faithful despite their own fears, who demonstrated grace despite their own need for grace. He smiled at my obvious relief. Perfect love flows through imperfect vessels, Jonathan. That's been my plan from the beginning. He then showed me a reunion that illustrated this truth perfectly. A woman arriving from Earth was being embraced by a man whose face radiated pure joy and love. Jesus explained, "That's her brother. He struggled with addiction for years, caused her pain and worry, but never stopped loving her." His last words to her before he passed were an apology for his failures and a promise that he'd always love her. His brokenness didn't disqualify him from being her first glimpse of home. His love did. "This is crucial for people to understand," Jesus said earnestly. "They think they have to be perfect to matter in someone's life, to have a lasting impact, to be worthy of love. But I specialize in using broken people to demonstrate perfect love." Some of the most profound first encounters happen when someone is greeted by a person who learned to love through their own struggles, who discovered grace through their own need for forgiveness. This truth was healing wounds in my heart I didn't even know existed. Jesus continued to reveal the beautiful complexity of how these first encounters are chosen. Sometimes, he said, the person who greets someone home is someone they helped without realizing it. A kind word spoken to a stranger, a moment of encouragement given to someone who was struggling, a prayer offered for someone in need. These acts of love create bonds that surprise people when they discover them in eternity. I thought about all the small interactions we have every day, wondering how many might have eternal significance we're completely unaware of. Love notices what others miss, Jesus explained. While someone might focus on their failures or regrets, love remembers the moment they comforted a crying child, the time they helped someone who couldn't help them back, the prayer they whispered for someone they barely knew. These moments of pure love, given without expectation of return, create some of the most beautiful first encounters in eternity. I realize that God's accounting system is completely different from ours. He remembers love when we've forgotten it ourselves. As we walk through this realm where love seemed to be the very atmosphere we were breathing, Jesus began to explain how these first encounters serve a specific purpose in someone's transition to eternity. The person who greets them home, he said, serves as a bridge between their earthly experience and their eternal reality. They help the newly arrived soul understand that death isn't an ending, it's a transformation, a graduation into fuller life. Think about it, Jesus continued. If someone were greeted by a being they didn't recognize, even if that being was an angel or a saint, there might be confusion or fear. But when they're embraced by someone whose love they know, someone who speaks to their heart in familiar tones, the transition feels natural, safe, like coming home after a long journey. This made perfect sense, God's wisdom in designing eternity around relationship rather than hierarchy or formality. Jesus then revealed something that brought tears to my eyes. The first words spoken in these reunions are always words of love, affirmation, and welcome. Never judgment, never disappointment, never correction. Always, "I've been waiting for you, I've missed you. Welcome home, you are so loved." He paused, his own eyes glistening with emotion. These are often the words their hearts have been longing to hear their entire earthly life, spoken by the person whose opinion mattered most to them. For some people, Jesus continued, these are words they never heard clearly on earth. Perhaps their parents struggled to express love, or their friend wasn't good with emotional communication, or circumstances prevented them from having deep conversations. But in eternity, all barriers to love's expression are removed. Hearts can finally speak freely, love can finally be communicated perfectly, and souls can finally receive the affirmation they've always needed. I thought about all the things left unsaid in my own relationships, all the love that gets tangled up in human limitation and fear. Jesus seemed to read my thoughts. This is why I want people to know about these first encounters, Jonathan. It should inspire them to speak love more freely on earth, to express appreciation more openly, to say the words that matter while they have the chance. But it should also comfort them to know that even if they miss opportunities on earth, love finds a way to complete every conversation, to heal every relationship, to speak every word that matters. The relief I felt was overwhelming, both motivation to love better now and peace about relationships that felt incomplete. As our journey through this incredible realm continued, Jesus began to show me how these first encounters ripple out into the entire experience of eternity. Once someone has been welcomed home by their first encounter, he explained, they're gradually introduced to the full community of love that has been preparing for their arrival. But that first reunion sets the tone for everything that follows it, establishes that this is a place of love, recognition, acceptance, and joy. He showed me how these initial reunions often lead to celebrations that include everyone who loved that person in any way. Eternity is not a place of individual experience, Jesus said. It's a community of interconnected love where every arrival strengthens the whole, where every reunion adds to the joy of all. I watched as these expanding circles of celebration unfolded, each new arrival being embraced not just by their first encounter, but eventually by everyone whose life they had touched with love. The beautiful thing about love, Jesus continued, is that it multiplies rather than divides. When someone is reunited with one person they loved, it doesn't take away from their love for others, it enhances their capacity for all relationships. Love here isn't limited by time or attention or emotional energy the way it is on earth. Every relationship can be fully experienced, fully enjoyed, fully expressed. This vision of eternity was so much richer and more relational than I had ever imagined. Jesus then addressed a question that I knew many people carry. People wonder about relationships that were complicated on earth, marriages that ended in divorce, friendships that were broken by betrayal, family relationships that were damaged by hurt or misunderstanding. How do these work in eternity? His expression became incredibly tender as he prepared to answer this difficult question that affects so many people's understanding of what eternity might hold for them. Eternity is not about recreating earthly relationships exactly as they were, Jesus explained gently. It's about fulfilling the love that was at the heart of every relationship, freed from all the limitations and wounds that prevented that love from being fully expressed on earth. He paused, letting this sink in. Hurt people on earth, but healed people love perfectly in eternity. Every soul arrives here whole, complete, free from the brokenness that caused them to wound others or be wounded by others. So when former spouses meet in eternity, Jesus continued, they don't necessarily resume their marriage relationship, but they celebrate the love that was real between them and the ways they helped each other grow. When friends who were separated by conflict are reunited, they focus on the joy they shared and the lessons they learned through each other, not on the pain that divided them. This understanding brought such peace to my heart about relationships in my own life that had ended in disappointment or hurt. Jesus then revealed something profound about forgiveness in eternity. Forgiveness isn't something that has to be worked toward in eternity. It's automatic when souls see each other through eyes of perfect love and understanding. All the context that was missing on earth becomes clear. All the pain that caused hurtful behavior is healed. All the misunderstandings that led to conflict are resolved. Perfect knowledge leads to perfect forgiveness, and perfect forgiveness leads to perfect love. The beauty of this divine design took my breath away. This is why earthly forgiveness is so important, Jesus continued. It's practice for this perfect forgiveness. Every time someone chooses to forgive on earth, even when it's difficult, even when the other person doesn't deserve it, even when the hurt runs deep, they're developing the capacity for the perfect love that exists in eternity. They're becoming more like their eternal selves. I realize that forgiveness isn't just about healing earthly relationships, it's about preparing our hearts for the fullness of love we're designed for. As Jesus continued to unveil these mysteries of eternity, he began to explain how knowledge works in this realm. On earth, people make decisions based on partial information, limited perspective, and wounded hearts. They judge each other's actions without understanding the full story, the hidden pain, the complex circumstances that led to certain choices. He gestured around the beautiful landscape we were walking through. Here, perfect understanding eliminates the need for judgment. When you see someone's whole story, their struggles, their victories, their growth, their love judgment transforms into compassion. This is what happens in every first encounter, Jesus explained. The person who greets someone home sees them with this perfect understanding. They see past any earthly failures or struggles to the heart that loved, the soul that grew, the spirit that persevered. This is how I've always seen each person, and in eternity, this becomes how everyone sees everyone else. I thought about how different Earth would be if we could see each other through these eyes of perfect understanding and compassion. Jesus then addressed what might be one of the most common fears people have about eternity. Many people worry about whether they'll be disappointed in eternity, whether the people they're excited to see again will somehow be different, less than they remember, or changed in ways that make their relationship less meaningful. His face lit up with joy as he prepared to address this fear. Love doesn't diminish in eternity, it's perfected. People don't become less themselves, they become more themselves than they ever were on earth. When someone encounters their loved one in that first reunion, Jesus continued, they recognize them instantly because their essence, their core self, their spirit, is exactly who they always were, just freed from all the limitations, fears, wounds, and struggles that sometimes mask their true self on earth. He showed me another reunion as he spoke, and I could see exactly what he meant. The people embracing were unmistakably themselves, but glowing with a vitality and authenticity that was breathtaking. The shy person becomes confidently loving. The angry person becomes passionately joyful. The fearful person becomes courageously faithful. The broken person becomes beautifully whole. Jesus' words painted a picture of transformation that preserved identity while perfecting character. They don't become different people, they become the people they always had the potential to be, the people I always saw them as, the people they glimpsed in their best moments on earth. As we continued through this incredible revelation, Jesus began to explain how these first encounters prepare people for their eternal purpose. Every soul has a unique role in the community of eternity, he said, and their first encounter begins to help them understand what that role might be. I watched as newly arrived souls were not only embraced with love, but also gently introduced to the idea that their journey was continuing, not ending. The person who greets them home often becomes their guide into their eternal purpose, Jesus explained. If they were greeted by someone who taught them about compassion on earth, they might discover their eternal calling involves comforting others. If they were welcomed by someone who showed them courage, they might find themselves helping other new arrivals overcome fear. Love recognizes love, and similar hearts often work together in eternity just as they did on earth. This vision of eternity as an active, purposeful community rather than just an endless rest was inspiring beyond words. As this incredible teaching portion of our encounter began to transition, Jesus looked at me with an expression of profound love mixed with gentle urgency. Jonathan, everything I've shown you about first encounters in eternity points to one crucial truth that I need people to understand right now, while they're still living their earthly lives. He paused, and I could feel the weight of what he was about to say. The way they love others today is preparing someone's homecoming tomorrow. Every act of genuine love, every moment of authentic care, every choice to see the best in someone might be preparing them to be someone's first glimpse of home. Then something happened that I'll never forget as long as I live. Jesus' expression suddenly changed, becoming incredibly tender, almost vulnerable. He said, "Jonathan, there's something I need to show you personally. Something that will help you understand why you were chosen to carry this message." Before I could ask what he meant, the landscape around us began to shift, and suddenly I found myself in a place I recognized my grandmother's kitchen from when I was a child. But this wasn't just a memory or a vision. My grandmother was there, looking exactly as I remembered her, but somehow more vibrant, more alive, more herself than she'd ever been on earth. When she saw me, her face lit up with such pure joy that I immediately started crying. She rushed toward me with her arms open, and when she embraced me, I felt like that 7-year-old boy again who used to run to her whenever I was scared or hurt or confused about life. "Nana," I whispered, using the name I'd called her as a child. She pulled back to look at my face, her hands cupping my cheeks just like she used to do. "My beautiful boy," she said in that voice I'd missed for 10 years. I've been waiting for this moment. Her eyes were sparkling with tears of joy, and I could see in them all the love she'd ever had for me, magnified and perfected. "I've been watching you, praying for you, so proud of how you're using your gifts to share his love." I couldn't stop the tears from flowing. All the grief I'd carried since her passing, all the times I'd wished I could talk to her one more time, all the questions I'd wanted to ask her, all the things I'd wanted to tell her, everything came pouring out. "Nana, I've missed you so much. There have been so many times I needed your wisdom, your prayers, your hugs. I felt so lost without you sometimes. She just held me tighter, letting me release years of stored up longing. "Oh, my sweet boy," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I never left you. I've been right there with you through every struggle, every triumph, every moment you felt alone. When you got the role of Jesus, I was there celebrating. When you doubted whether you were worthy of portraying him, I was there praying for your confidence. When you questioned your faith, I was there asking God to reveal himself to you in new ways. Love doesn't end just because bodies do." And Jesus, who had been quietly watching this reunion, stepped closer and said gently, "Jonathan, your grandmother has been preparing for this moment since the day she arrived here. She knew that one day you would need this encounter, this confirmation that love truly transcends every boundary." My grandmother nodded, wiping tears from her eyes. "I asked Jesus if I could be part of delivering this message to you. I wanted you to know from my own lips that everything he's shown you about first encounters is true." She took my hands in hers, and I could feel the familiar calluses from all her years of cooking and caring for our family. "Jonathan, when my time came to leave Earth, I wasn't afraid because I knew I was going to love, and I was right. The moment I opened my eyes here, I was surrounded by everyone who had ever loved me, my parents, my husband, friends I'd lost over the years. But do you know what the most beautiful part was?" I shook my head, hanging on every word. "The most beautiful part was realizing that I was going to be part of welcoming others home. That my love, the love I'd given you and your family, was going to be used to comfort other souls making this transition. Every prayer I prayed for you, every meal I made with love, every time I held you when you were scared, all of that prepared my heart to be a greeter, a comfort giver, a reflection of God's love to others arriving in eternity. Her words were healing parts of my soul I didn't even know were broken." Jesus spoke up again, his voice filled with gentle authority. "This is what I need people to understand, Jonathan. Every grandmother like Maria, every parent, every friend, every person who learns to love sacrificially on earth becomes equipped to be someone's first encounter in eternity. Love is the qualification. A heart that knows how to comfort, encourage, and welcome is a heart that can represent my love to a soul taking their first steps into eternal life." My grandmother squeezed my hands tighter. "Jonathan, there are people watching your videos who are grieving someone they love, wondering if they'll ever see them again, questioning whether their relationships mattered, doubting whether love really survives beyond the grave. I need you to tell them from someone who has experienced both sides that love is eternal. The love they shared with their person is not lost. It's here, it's active, it's preparing for their reunion." She continued, her voice growing stronger with passion. "And I need you to tell them that the love they're giving right now to their children, their friends, their family, even to strangers, that love is preparing them to be someone's first glimpse of home too. Every act of kindness, every moment of patience, every choice to see the best in someone is qualifying them to be a welcomer in eternity. They're not just living their life, they're preparing for their eternal purpose." Jesus stepped forward and placed his hand on both of our shoulders. "This is why your grandmother's words about being excited to meet everyone else made such an impact on you, Jonathan. She understood something that many people miss, that eternity isn't just about receiving love, it's about giving love. It's not just about being welcomed home, it's about becoming someone who welcomes others home. Love is circular, eternal, always flowing from one heart to another." My grandmother looked at me with such intensity that I knew she was about to say something crucial. "Jonathan, I need you to pay attention to this next part because it's the most important message I can give to everyone watching. The person who will greet them home when their time comes is probably someone they're thinking about right now. It's probably someone whose love shaped them, whose memory brings them comfort, whose influence made them a better person. That relationship they're remembering with such fondness, that's not just a beautiful memory, that's a preview of their homecoming." She continued, tears streaming down her face with joy. "But here's what's even more beautiful, they might also be that person for someone else. Someone in their life right now, someone they're loving well, someone they're showing kindness to, someone they're praying for, they might be that person's first encounter in eternity. The love they're giving today might be the love that welcomes someone else home tomorrow. Every relationship is potentially eternal, every act of love potentially world-changing. Jesus' voice joined my grandmother's in perfect harmony. This is why I came to Earth, Jonathan, to show people that love is the point of everything. Love between parents and children, love between spouses, love between friends, love between strangers who show each other kindness. Every expression of genuine love on earth is a reflection of my heart, and every reflection of my heart becomes part of the eternal community of love that welcomes souls home. My grandmother pulled me into another embrace, and I could feel decades of love pouring into me, all the prayers she'd prayed, all the meals she'd made, all the stories she'd told, all the comfort she'd given. But more than that, I could feel her joy about her current purpose in eternity, her excitement about being part of God's welcoming committee for souls making the transition from earth. I'm not just resting here, Jonathan. I'm working, serving, loving in ways more fulfilling than anything I ever experienced on earth. Tell them, she said urgently, that their loved ones who have gone before aren't just waiting passively for them to arrive. We're actively participating in God's plan of love. We're praying for those still on earth. We're preparing for reunions. We're learning how to love even more perfectly so we can be the best possible welcome for the souls who will need us. Eternity is not retirement from love, it's graduation into perfect love. Jesus stepped closer to both of us, and I could feel our time together was drawing to a close. Jonathan, what you've experienced here today, this reunion with your grandmother, this understanding of how first encounters work in eternity, this is available to every person who opens their heart to love. Not just when they reach eternity, but right now, in their earthly life. Love creates connections that transcend time, space, and even the boundary between life and afterlife. My grandmother kissed my forehead, just like she used to do when I was little. Jonathan, when you go back and share this message, remember that you're not just telling people about eternity, you're giving them permission to believe that their love matters infinitely more than they realize. You're helping them understand that every relationship has eternal significance. Every act of kindness has eternal impact. Every choice to love has eternal consequences. She paused, looking at me with such deep love and pride, and tell them that when their time comes to make the transition from earth to eternity, they don't need to be afraid. Love is waiting for them, someone who knows their heart, someone who understands their journey, someone who has been prepared by God Himself to be their first glimpse of home. That person is ready and waiting, with arms open wide and a heart full of joy. Jesus took my hand, and my grandmother took the other, and together we stood in that sacred space between earth and eternity. This message isn't just information, Jonathan, Jesus said softly. It's invitation. I'm inviting everyone who hears this to live differently, love more freely, forgive more quickly, appreciate more deeply. I'm inviting them to see their relationships through eternal eyes, to understand that the love they give and receive is preparing them for something infinitely more beautiful than they can imagine. My grandmother squeezed my hand one final time, and Jonathan, I want you to know that I'll be here, waiting for our permanent reunion someday. But until then, I'm praying for you, cheering you on, so proud of how God is using you to bring comfort and hope to people who need it. You're not just an actor playing Jesus, you're becoming more like Jesus through the love you share with others. As this incredible encounter began to fade, Jesus looked directly at me with such love and authority that His words seemed to imprint themselves on my very soul. Jonathan, go back and tell them what you've seen. Tell them that love is eternal, that relationships matter infinitely, that their first encounter in eternity will be with someone who loves them deeply. But most importantly, tell them to love well right now, because the love they give today is preparing tomorrow's homecomings. The last thing I remember from this divine encounter was my grandmother's voice, filled with joy and hope, saying, "Tell them I said that every goodbye on earth is just see you later, from heaven's perspective. Tell them their loved ones are not lost, we're just home ahead of them, getting everything ready for the most beautiful reunion they can imagine." And then I woke up. But this wasn't like waking up from a regular dream where the details fade quickly. Every word, every emotion, every revelation was crystal clear. I lay in my bed for hours, overwhelmed by the weight and beauty of what I'd experienced. I knew without a doubt that this message wasn't just for me, it was for everyone who has ever wondered about eternity, everyone who has ever grieved someone they love, everyone who has ever questioned whether their relationships really matter. So, here's what I want you to know, and I want you to really hear this. When your time comes to transition from this world to the next, you will not be alone, you will not be confused, and you will not be afraid. The person who loves you most, who understands your heart best, who has been prepared by God Himself to be your welcome home, that person will be there with arms open wide. This isn't speculation or wishful thinking. This is the promise Jesus gave me to share with you. But more than that, I want you to understand that the love you're giving right now matters infinitely more than you realize. Every hug you give, every kind word you speak, every prayer you offer, every moment you choose to see the best in someone, you might be preparing yourself to be someone else's first glimpse of home. The relationships you're building today, the love you're sharing today, the kindness you're showing today, all of it has eternal significance that will ripple through eternity in ways more beautiful than you can imagine. When I came back from this encounter, people noticed something different about me. There's a peace in my heart about eternity that wasn't there before, a confidence in the power of love that has changed how I treat everyone around me. I'm not afraid of losing people anymore because I know that love is stronger than any separation. I'm not worried about whether my relationships matter because I know they're preparing for eternity. Every person I meet, I see as someone I might encounter again in the most beautiful context imaginable. Before I end this video, I want to pray for you because I know Jesus would want me to. Father, I thank you for every person watching this right now. I thank you that their love matters, that their relationships have eternal significance, that they are being prepared for the most beautiful homecoming imaginable. For those who are grieving someone they love, comfort them with the knowledge that love never ends, that their loved one is actively preparing for their reunion. For those who are afraid of the future, remind them that love is waiting for them. In Jesus' name, amen. The truth Jesus revealed to me is simple but life-changing. Love is the beginning, the middle, and the end of everything that matters. Your first encounter in eternity will be with love. Your purpose in eternity will be to give and receive love. Your preparation for eternity happens every time you choose love over fear, connection over isolation, forgiveness over bitterness. You are so much more loved than you know, and the love you give matters so much more than you realize. That's the message Jesus wanted me to share with you today. If this touched your heart in any way, I'd be honored if you subscribe to stay connected for more of these conversations. And please, share in the comments below, tell me about someone who loved you well, or share your own thoughts about what eternity might hold. Your story matters, and I'd love to hear it.